Good evening, everyone. This is Dr. Hennessy. I am coming to you from Nashville, Tennessee. I'm actually here to conduct a training seminar this weekend. So I was looking through and kind of responding to some of your discussion questions and asking some more probing questions. And I was taking a look through, and now everyone should have had their initial post completed. So I wanted to give you some feedback tonight before you start working on week 2. So, it's the first discussion question and of a new term. And so I gave an example so that everyone would know exactly kind of what I felt like a grade A discussion question post would look like. So if you followed the example and you set up your response in that same way, most likely you're going to get a very good grade. If you deviated from the example, either you're an excellent writer and you wanted to kind of make that discussion question your own, which is fine, or maybe you didn't see that I posted an example is what I'm thinking, because I saw quite a few deviations on the discussion question posts, and so I'm slightly concerned that some folks aren't reading the announcements, but so if you're seeing this video, please make sure you guys are reading the announcements. There's a wealth of information on there. So for this week's discussion question, there's obviously a patient scenario that was asked, disease process, patient factor, and pathophysiology. So on your discussion post, I expect to see subheadings, APA subheadings for each of those kind of factors. For next week, I'm actually sharing my screen with you guys. I have discussion question 1 up here, and it tells you how to prepare to read the chapters in Huether and McCants. Used to be McCants and Huether. Now I'm dating myself. And it asks you to reflect on the concept of the maladaptive responses of the disorders. Then it wants you to pick 2. So it's kind of like Panera Bread. You get to pick 2. HIV, psoriasis, inflammatory bowel disease, whichever ones you want. You get to pick 2 of them, and then you write up the pathophysiology of those disorders, and then you also talk about the maladaptive and psychological responses of them, and you also are going to be selecting a patient factor that comes into play. So for discussion question 1 for week 2, I would expect to see a subheading for each of your immune disorders, a subheadings about the pathophysiology and adaptation, so like a compare and contrast, and then also a subheading for the patient factors. So you can set it up very similar to week 1 discussion question in APA format, and you guys are going to do just fine on that. So if for some reason you have not gotten the grade that you wanted to on discussion question 1, make sure you're looking at that example and trying to follow that format. So you should be introducing your discussion question with an APA heading, which is centered in the middle. Obviously, sometimes, Blackboard's a little bit crazy where you post and then all of a sudden there's different font sizes and different spacing, and I don't take points off for that. That's not your fault. It's something with Blackboard, and I'm not really sure how to fix it either. So I don't certainly take points off for that, but you need to make sure that you're introducing your paper with an APA heading and then using subheadings to organize your information. The use of subheadings has 2 different effects. The first is that you make sure that you have addressed and identified each aspect of that discussion question. So you know that when I am grading that, I'm looking down and using this and using the rubric and saying, okay, they needed to pick 2 immune disorders. Which 2 did they pick? And then I read about the immune disorders that you picked. If it's not very obvious which ones you picked, and I have to search for it, or there's a little here and a little there, it's going to be much more difficult for me to find that, and I might miss it. So by using those subheadings, it also organizes it for me while I'm grading your paper so that I also know that you've addressed every single aspect of that discussion question. I'm not going to, kind of belabor the grading of this, and I'm not going to insult you guys by a bunch of, red pen markings on your discussion questions or your assignments. I think all of you have been nurses for quite a long time, and you're self-aware enough to know whether you are, your strength is writing or you struggle with it. If you're struggling with the writing process, make sure that you're contacting the Writing Center at Walden so that they can help you. And if not, if you're, kind of trucking away with APA format and you're all good, awesome. Keep doing what you're doing. Just a reminder, there is no I in APA writing. So if you are writing I in your initial post, it is not APA, so you're going to get marked off for that. APA is always third person voice. So just make sure that you're kind of keeping track of, I know it's really hard because you're like, I get that it's the natural kind of inclination to do that, but unfortunately it's not APA, not proper APA format. The initial format obviously is a little bit more formal, and so we are expecting that strict APA. For your responses to your colleagues, I'm a little bit more lax on that because I want you to share your experiences. So you're going to have to say, I had a patient who, on our unit, we had a patient that, blah, 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 blah kind of thing. So definitely we want you to cite your sources in your response because you are going to use resources and we want you to cite those in APA format. But I also want you to share a little bit about your own personal experiences and share that with the group. So with your responses, it's a little bit more informal and a little bit more personal, but for that initial post, it really needs to be pretty strict APA. Please look at the rubric because you can essentially know the grade that you're going to get on your assignments and on your discussion posts by looking at the rubric. It tells you exactly how many points you get for each aspect. I just want to point out because there were a few people who only used 2 references or 2 resources. Not using 3 references automatically puts you down at a proficient level. You can't go above proficient unless you have at least 3 resources. And again, it's much more preferable for those resources to be outside resources, maybe 1 of the books that we have in class, and then 2 to 8 outside sources, studies, other textbooks, peer-reviewed materials, things like that. Let's see, what else did I see on there? I have my little notes here. I think other than that, everything looked good. This week there was a scenario. Next week there is no patient scenario. Definitely feel free to ask questions to your colleagues about their posts. I see a lot of agreeing, and that's fine. There's a lot to agree to, but if you have a differing perspective or thought process, or maybe you read something to the contrary of what was posted, please share that. Don't be afraid to, kind of put yourself out there a little bit and share that. So very happy to see everyone participating and really enjoying it. Week 2 has 2 discussion questions. Just make sure you keep that in mind. There are 2 discussion questions. Make sure you're doing both of them. And if you have any questions, please let me know, but definitely take a look at the announcements because that's going to be the main area where you find videos like this and where you get most of your information. So enjoy this weekend. Have a wonderful weekend with your family or at work. Some of you guys might be at work, and that's fine, and working on week 2. So I wanted to make sure I got you some of this feedback before you started on the next week because I think that's important. I will try to get your grades into you as soon as possible. Week 1 sometimes is a little bit more challenging because there's a lot more comments to make, but I think that giving you guys some group feedback like this will make it much easier for you guys to really understand what you're supposed to be doing and what the correct formatting is. And I think that's always a struggle with a new class. So hopefully that will help. And I will get you guys your grades back as soon as possible. So everything's due on Saturday night, Sunday morning, depending on what part of the country you live in. And if you have any questions, please make sure you're posting on the contact instructor page and I will respond ASAP. If you need to send me an email, just make sure that you're using the appropriate subject line like we talked about in the welcome video so that it doesn't go to my spam and so that it goes to the top of my inbox. So I want to make sure that I respond to you. If I have not responded to you in 48 hours, it means I didn't get your email because every morning or every other morning with coffee, you'll see responses from me at like 5:30, 6 o'clock sometimes. So I want to make sure that I do not miss your emails. They're important to me. So just let me know if you guys need anything and we'll talk to you soon. Bye guys. Have a good night.